Truancy is the #1 predictor of failure in school, and 80% of high school dropouts end up in prison. We'll talk about truancy right now on the LawWorks.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Closed captioning for the LawWorks is made possible by a grant from the Monongalia County Bar Association to support legal information and education for all West Virginians. The LawWorks is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
If a child fails in school, they typically drop out. If they drop out, they typically get seriously involved with drugs. If they get seriously involved with drugs, they typically go to prison. My guests are Supreme Court Justice Robin Davis and Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, Susan Tucker. Judge Tucker, Justice Davis, thank you for coming up.
My pleasure, Dan.
Delighted to be here.
Truancy. Truancy has always been a problem. Why is it more of a problem now?
Well, in West Virginia, I had the opportunity to go to a judicial conference and see Judge Moats from Taylor County to talk about the issue of truancy in his community. And when I saw the numbers and heard the statistics, I felt like as a court system, we had to do something. And so Judge Moats and I started on this program in August of last year, traveling across the state to talk about truancy and heighten the public awareness of the issue.
Truancy rates are stunningly high in some counties. And in fact, in Taylor County, Judge Moats' jurisdiction, the truancy rate was around 22% at that time, which would mean about 1 in 4 kids were truant at some time. But at other places in West Virginia, it goes as high as 50%, according to West Virginia Department of Education statistics. I was stunned when I read these statistics because the places where I thought education would be most highly valued and the children would most likely be in school would be where the major colleges, universities are located, where the seat of government is. But Kanawha County, Monongalia County, Cabell County had truancy rates of around 44 or 45%. You saw these figures, Judge Tucker, and decided you wanted to do something about it.
I did. Actually, even before I saw the figures, I knew that something was wrong in our society because of the number of truancies that we had. And that was before we began to organize bringing truancy cases to court the way they are now. And in my first few years as judge, I realized these kids aren't going to school because they don't know their subject matter, they can't get it, or the parents don't care, or it seems like our society is tolerating it more. Dan, would you, in your wildest dreams, have skipped school more than maybe one day in your whole time you were in school?
I skipped a half day when I was in high school because I was in a choir and we did a performance at noon, and some of us thought it would be a sneaky idea if we just were slow going back. So we didn't even miss a whole half day, I think maybe 30 minutes of class.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal, wasn't it?
It was exciting.
Yes. 30 days now is not unheard of, not 30 minutes.
Justice Davis, when you heard Judge Moats' presentation concerning truancy, as a member of the Supreme Court, you have some power. What happened down there?
Well, what we decided to do was attack the problem in the school system because, as you said, 8 out of 10 truants are in our West Virginia jails and prisons. They end up in prison. So if we don't attack the problem in preschool and kindergarten, then ultimately these children end up in our jails and prisons on the criminal side. So the court nominated me to initiate the program. So Judge Moats and I divided the state of West Virginia up into 14 regions, and we went to each region and talked about heightened awareness of the issue of truancy and tried to get all of the stakeholders involved, those being the teachers, the principals, the superintendents, probation officers, and most importantly, the persons with the big hammer, the circuit judges.
So we're sending kindergarten kids to prison if they skip school?
No, we're sending their parents.
Oh, really?
Most people do not understand that there is a criminal liability against a parent who does not make sure that their children go to school. And what we see is that's the factor in kindergarten and grade school. But by the time kids get to 9th grade, which is where high school starts now, it's the kids who make the decision. They're smart enough and clever enough to figure out how to skip school. But before that, it's basically the parents' responsibility.
Well, where does the problem come from?
It's a combination of things. In some instances, the parents that are not sending these grade school children to school were truants. So they say, we had a bad experience at school and it's all the teacher's problems, so you don't have to go. It can be a problem with a child being bullied at school. It can be the very simple thing that Judge Tucker just talked about. The children are not learning in school, maybe need extra tutoring, and so they just give up and won't go. Those are some of the examples.
Well, doesn't the school react to that? Isn't that what the schools are supposed to do, is identify the students who are having academic trouble and might be then reluctant to go? I mean, if a child can't read, for example, the last place they want to go is a history or an English course, because we don't teach reading by the time you get in high school. You're supposed to be able to do that. Don't the schools react to those kids and help them?
They do, especially when kids are going into high school, into the 9th grade. They try to identify kids they think will have problems, and they pay special attention to them and give them special help. But as you just said, if you get to the 9th grade and you can't do math except maybe on a 3rd grade level, I had one student who said her math level was 3rd grade, and she was so embarrassed that she didn't want to go to math class, and so that began her truancy. But anyway, once you get to 9th grade, it's really hard to learn how to read and learn how to do math and catch up.
So that 9th grade, 10th grade student doesn't go to school. How do we get them to go to school? And if I understand tough Judge Tucker over there, she's going to threaten to lock their parents up, or what?
No. The big hammer that we have, if you want to call it that, is it's my job to make sure that a child gets his or her education. And if they're not going to get it voluntarily, let's call it, in our school system, then I have the right to place them in a residential facility where they live, eat, and go to school and get their education.
You send them to reform school.
It's not reform school. That's for children who commit acts which otherwise, if they were an adult, would be a criminal act. This is just for truancy.
Truancy is what is referred to as a status offense.
Correct.
That is, it's against the law because you are a child.
Correct.
And you do it.
Yes.
If you were over 18,
nobody would care.
Yeah, it wouldn't count for anything.
Right.
Correct.
If it were a job you weren't going to, you'd simply lose your job.
Correct.
Well, Justice Davis, you went around, you made these presentations, and you were probably warmly greeted by the people that you went to see.
Right.
But what happened?
Well, I've since gone back to some of the other counties where we did our initial program. And let me give you an example in Mercer County. Their stakeholders are working so well together that just within the past few months, since August of last year, their truancy rates have drastically reduced. And we're finding that in every county who has established a program that's tailored to the needs of that specific county, we're seeing a decrease in the amount of truancy in each county. This is the first system that I know of anywhere in the country where we have literally gotten all the stakeholders together to work together so that there's one plan for each student as opposed to DHHR doing one thing and a circuit judge doing another. Now we're all working together to develop the same plan, and no child falls through the cracks.
When you say plan, are you referring to something akin to an individual instruction plan that?
Pretty much. In every county, I mean, what might work here in Monongalia County might not work in Judge Moats' Taylor County or in the southern part of the state. One of the things that Judge Rowe is doing in Greenbrier County, when a child has 5 unexcused absences, a notice is to be sent to the parents. Well, guess who delivers that notice in Greenbrier County? A deputy sheriff. Now, you think that doesn't get some attention? Judge Farrell in Cabell County last Monday and last Tuesday had 100 parents and their children into his courtroom and basically laid down the law and said, you either attend school or somebody's going to go to jail.
We're talking about truancy in West Virginia. My guests are Supreme Court Justice Robin Davis and the Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, Susan Tucker. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. Well, the truancy rate goes down in the first instance. Do you think it's going to stay down? What is it going to take to continue to have some success with this?
I think just a continued heightened awareness of the situation, and I have to give our circuit judges in the state of West Virginia a ton of credit because, as Judge Tucker said, you know, there are provisions in our statutes which provide for educational neglect, and these children have a constitutional right to be in school, and if they're not, the person that can impose sanctions on the parents or the children are our circuit court judges, and they have stepped up to the plate and taken on the additional task. Now, having said that, you know, the goal is not just to put people in jail. I mean, the goal, that would be the most, I would say, restrictive alternative, or you know, the most extreme alternative.
That has happened, though.
That has happened, but I would suggest to you that I doubt very seriously that that's the first thing that Judge Tucker contemplates.
No, my goal is to get the child in school and get the child the help that he or she needs, which brings me to a subject I would like to address. One of the problems is that we do not have the allocation of services that we need to perpetuate this program. Right now, when I have a child with special needs, and I don't mean that they have special educational needs, their special needs might be catching up in math from the 3rd grade to the 9th grade where they are. There's no way that I can get that done. I know that one child I had like that, I required DHHR to pay for sending them to a private schooling company. I'm not going to name it. And they said, oh, no, we can't do that. And I said, oh, yes, you can. And so that child didn't know how to study. And there is no resource in this county that I know of where the child can get individualized training on how to study. It goes that deep. And until we have resources at our fingertips, it's not going to change. Some of the children who are truant have emotional problems. Some rise to a mental health issue. A lot of it is just unresolved issues within the family. That's a big problem. And I struggle almost daily with how can I get this child the help he or she needs, because a lot of times it's a low-income family. They don't have hospitalization. They might have a medical card, but finding a doctor in that area who will take a medical card is getting more difficult and more difficult. And so my hands are tied. I can't give the child what it needs, he or she, to be able to go to school and focus and learn. It's very frustrating.
Justice Davis, you talked about plans, and I referred to individual instruction plans. I get every month phone calls into my office from frustrated parents saying, my child is a special needs child in school. They have an IEP, individualized educational plan,
Right.
and the school's not following it. What can I do to make the school follow it? And there is no way to do that.
Well,
I can tell them hire a lawyer, and they say, well, I don't have any money to hire a lawyer.
Right.
And that's the problem. You know, we see those frequently at the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, somebody suing the DHHR because they have not followed the IEP plan.
DHHR is the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources.
Correct, correct. So we do see those, but unfortunately, the only mechanism we have to enforce those IEP plans at this time is initiating a lawsuit. Let me tell you one of the other things that is being done. There is very easily, the principals and the teachers can identify the children who are at risk because of truancy.
Absolutely.
And one of the programs set up again by Judge Moats, of course with the help of the teachers and the principals, is they identify those students early on in the school year. And they have special classes for those. Of course, it takes a lot of effort from the teachers and the principals, but they give these children extra tutoring. And that has worked beautifully. And then you just have to follow year after year after year with those children. But it is making a difference. We're seeing it already.
I think that we are going to have to realize that this isn't a problem that arose suddenly. It's not an easy fix. We can't just put a Band-Aid on it, which is what we're sort of doing now by making them go to school and trying to do our best without resources. If we don't get the resources, we can't keep doing what we're doing, and that is just sort of duct taping things together. And that is what I see is the next step. Just as the Supreme Court realized that something's wrong with this truancy rate, and just as the truancy rates were somehow aligned or in relationship to the prison numbers, people have got to realize that that's not going to end. And it's not going to end that the United States is 19th now in the world unless everyone knows that it's a problem. Everyone needs to know we're no longer number one and we need to do something about it. We can do something about it. We have the money. We just need to realize what the problem is and allocate the appropriate resources.
We're talking about truancy in West Virginia. My guests are Supreme Court Justice Robin Davis and the Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Monongalia County, Susan Tucker. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. Do we really have the money? The school systems uniformly complain we don't have enough money to do A, B, C, or D educationally. We build some fine high school football fields and some fine gymnasiums. And I don't mean to be critical of athletic programs. I think they're important. But do we have the money to pay for the extra tutoring? The school teachers go to work in the morning, they come home in the evening, they spend their evenings preparing, they spend their summers going to education programs, graduate education, so that they can improve and maintain their skills and keep their license. When are they going to do extra tutoring?
Let me say this. We have to find the money. And I would much rather utilize the money on these truancy issues and special tutoring programs than spend millions and millions of dollars building more jails and prisons. You know, if we can stop it on the front end, then we can save millions and millions of dollars on the construction of jails and millions of dollars on, you know, keeping people behind bars.
Not only that, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Not only that, the people who are in prison don't work and don't contribute to our society. We support their families basically, right? We support them because they're in prison getting 3 squares, as they call it. Why not have them out working, supporting their own families, and paying taxes to support the educational system? It's all a round circle, and it has to be a total dedication to get there. You can't put a Band-Aid on this.
This is all interrelated. In fact, from 1991 to 2011, our population, our prison population in West Virginia increased 321%. We can't build jails fast enough. We don't have the money to build enough jails and prisons to lock up everyone. I hesitate to say we'd like to lock up. I don't think we'd want to lock up, enjoy
Right.
locking up people. But people who commit crimes and are supposed to be sentenced to prison can't get in. There are waiting lists
Yes.
to get into prison.
I have some people who have a prison sentence imposed and literally serve enough time to be considered by the parole board in our regional jail because they can't get into the prison.
Well, and the regional jails are full up too.
Oh, sure.
At least for a time. And you can tell me if this still continues. If you were convicted of a relatively minor offense, not a trivial offense, a relatively minor offense, like
Grand larceny.
or DUI, you had to make a reservation
minor
to
offense.
go to jail because you couldn't get in right away.
Oh, you can get in jail, you can't get in prison. That's the problem. And here's why that's a big problem. The regional jail doesn't have the programs that our prison system does. At least if you're in prison, you can get into programs to learn a trade, to get your GED, to be in anger management counseling, to be in all kinds of programs. If you're in the regional jail, you're just languishing and biding your time. There's nothing to do, basically.
One of the things that impressed me when I read through the statistics about the truancy rates is that some of our more rural counties actually have some of the lower truancy rates. If I look, I made some notes and to pick 2 counties, Lewis County and Doddridge County, which are in roughly the same geographic portion of the state. Doddridge County, very rural county, has a 20% truancy rate. Lewis County had a 59% truancy rate. And I couldn't, I've handled legal issues in both of those counties. The populations are more or less the same. I couldn't distinguish factors why that would be so different.
I can guess.
What's your guess?
In Doddridge County, there are no large towns, correct?
Yes, that's
A large
very
part of, when kids are truant, they go out looking for fun or drugs and something to do. Some of them say they're bored. That means they're not getting it. In Lewis County, there are some significant towns, correct?
Well, there's Weston and there is Buchanan in Upshur County, but it's accessible.
Well, then maybe my theory's wrong, Dan.
Well, that's the problem. I don't know why this happens. And in fact, there has been, I do some federal criminal drug work, there has been a serious drug problem in Doddridge County. There's been a serious drug problem in Lewis County. And I'm not singling those 2 counties out, they're just geographically close. But the truancy rate is very high between the 2. So we look at these things and we say why and what can we do, and we don't know what we can do until we know why.
I thought you were saying that Doddridge County was significantly lower than Lewis.
It was. It's 20%.
Okay.
The truancy
All right.
rate. This is according to West Virginia Department of Education statistics.
Well, one of the things that we've seen a direct correlation is for those counties which have totally dismantled their VOTEC schools, their dropout rate is much higher than counties which have maintained their vocational technical schools.
That happened in Taylor County.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Mercer County, a county which does in fact have a huge VOTEC school, their truancy rates, as I said, have continued to decline.
Well, where do you go for help? If a parent's child isn't going to school and they think they need help to get that kid there, where would they go? Do you go to the Department of Education? Do you go to DHHR?
Well, I think the first place you go is to the school.
The principal's office.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to go to the principal's office. Judge Susan Tucker, Justice Robin Davis, thank you ladies for being with us.
Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
Thank you also for being with us. On behalf of the Law Works, I'm Dan Ringer. Good evening. On the LawWorks website at thelawworks.org, you'll find a listing of recent The LawWorks programs, additional information about this show's topic, and video of this and recent shows. You can also find the LawWorks programs on YouTube and iTunes. If you would like to suggest a topic for a future The LawWorks show, or if you're a school teacher and would like to receive a DVD of this show for classroom use, send us email at thelawworks@comcast.net or visit us on Facebook.
The LawWorks is produced in cooperation with the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the Mountain State Bar, the Monongalia County Bar Association, and the West Virginia University College of Law. The LawWorks is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.